All right, some latest news coming in. The Canadian High Commission says missions are open and operational. They've also called on the Indian government to ensure security of diplomats and staff in light of the current environment where tensions have heightened. I'm quoting what is being said by the Canadian High Commission. They've called out on the Indian government. We are taking action to ensure the safety of our diplomats. Says some received threats on social media. That's a worrying trend. Abhishek with us on the broadcast to give us more details on the story. Abhishek, tell us more, please.
So we know that the diplomatic row that has erupted between India and Canada in the last 72 hours or so has escalated in almost all directions from economy to polity. The latest is that High Commission in Canada, they have said that the operations of their commissions, their High Commission and various missions in India is very well running, and they have been the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Canada have been continuously monitoring the safety and security of missions and personnel, and they maintain a strict security protocol to respond to any events. We have seen some, some nationalist groups threatening to protest in front of Canadian High Commission and their missions across India. So probably keeping that in mind, the security scenario around various missions of Canadian High Commission in India has been taken into consideration. And the High Commission has also said, the Canadian High Commission has also told to CNN News 18 that in light of the recent heightened tension, they are taking actions to ensure the safety of our diplomats. With our diplomats having received threats on various social media platforms, Global Affairs Canada is assessing its staff complement in India. So their composition, their deputation, their official work, that is also being reassessed and repositioned because of the current security scenario. Their movement will have some bearing because of the increased security protocols. That is what we are learning right now. More details on what implication it could have for the visa application or the processing of visa, that remains to be seen.
That remains to be seen. Abhishek, the threats on social media, have the agencies really taken cognizance of that? Is there an official complaint that has been made in that regard?
Sorry, come again, Ritima.
The question that I'm asking to you is that the Canadian High Commission says that the missions are open and operational, and they've called on the Indian government to ensure security of diplomats. Now, in this context, there were also certain complaints that there are threats which are being received by these diplomats on social media. In that regard, is there an official complaint that has been raised with the security agencies?
The security, the security scenario, security protocol remains very, hidden, and they don't divulge much details on that. But the Canadian High Commission has said that as a result of the heightened tension and as an abundance of caution, they have decided to temporarily adjust staff presence in India. That may mean that some of them may be going back to Canada, or maybe some of them will be repositioned in different verticals of work. Some works may be reduced, or some work may be taken on a more urgent basis. The security protocol will guide some of the deputation. And also, the High Commission has said that all of our locations are staffed by diplomats and locally engaged staff to ensure business and operational continuity. And the Foreign Affairs Ministry of Canada, the Global Affairs Canada, they will continue to take all appropriate measures to protect the health and safety of all our personnel, including locally engaged staff. And the decisions are made based on a number of factors, including the professional profile of an employee or a personal circumstances. So keeping that in mind, the staffing is being reassessed, the locations are being reassessed, security protocol is being reassessed. How much of assurances they have got from the Indian government, that has not been told. But we know that some of the reports in Canadian media has said that Canada has kind of conveyed the Vienna Convention, under which the host country is supposed to protect and ensure the safety and security of all the diplomats of the guest country. So in that sense, Indian government is liable to ensure the safety and security of all the Canadian diplomats present in India, and is mandated by the Vienna Protocol, to which India is also free. So that has been told. So that means that the tensions are rising up so high that the countries or the diplomats have started referring to Vienna Convention. And that is not a very good sign for the bilateral ties, if we could say, between India and Canada.
Abhishek, getting us all those details. Mr. Sushant Sareen, who's a security expert, is also joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Sareen, good afternoon. Thank you so much for speaking with us. The Canadian High Commission issuing this statement in saying that in the light of the current environment, we are taking action to ensure safety of our diplomats. And they're also talking about certain threats that have been received on social media. It's indeed an escalation. How severe?
So the escalation is very clearly happening, and it's the Canadians who are responsible for the escalation that has taken place. They are the ones who have nuked this relationship by hurling scurrilous allegations without any evidence, merely on the basis of what their Prime Minister calls credible allegations, a new concept that he seems to have introduced. So clearly escalation has happened. I don't think India is in any mood to back down. Let us see the suspension of visa services that have been announced today, whether these are just a temporary measure or are likely to persist for the foreseeable future. But I think there is a lot of talk of other actions being taken. So clearly, yes, escalation has already started. I think India is a responsible country and will ensure the security of Canadian diplomats, but I'm not so sure about Canada.
Yeah.
The Canadians have ignored threats to Indian diplomats. Indian diplomats have almost been assaulted. Indian missions have been attacked, and the Canadians have sat over Indian planes and Indian complaints and just looked the other way while these Khalistani thugs have carried out these actions.
Right.
The Canadians have been hand in glove with these thugs and these terrorists, and for them to now say that they are looking to protect, for India to protect their missions and their people will be extremely safe in India. India will ensure nothing happens to them. And a lot of propaganda is taking place on the Canadian side of some threats, unnamed threats. In Canada, open threats are being issued. They are openly coming out and publicly declaring that they will attack. And yet the Canadians have not acted because they said it's freedom of speech. So if it's freedom of speech in Canada, then how is it not freedom of speech out here?
Interesting. One more aspect that perhaps would be pertinent to the discussion. BLS had put out this notification on the website saying we are suspending the service, visa services for India. Indian visa services have been suspended. Now they've removed that notification.
No, it's come back on.
Oh, you're saying once again that notification is on?
Yeah, it's very much back on.
And how do you understand this back and forth which is happening? Is it just a technical glitch,
know.
or
maybe it's just some glitch, some communication gap from their side, but it's back on. They've said that the services are suspended from 21st of September.
I also in this a discussion of heightened tensions between India and Canada, and while we fiercely continue to argue for our national interests, there's a huge Indian community living in Canada. And most of them, I would argue majority of them, don't agree with this Khalistani propaganda which is put out on the Canadian soil. And it's only a very small chunk of population which is involved into this. Their interests somewhere because of this tension have been jeopardized and put into some kind of uncertainty.
Yeah, that's true, and that's unfortunate. Things should have never reached such a pass between India and Canada. We are, after all, not supposed to be hostile countries, but if Canada allows a climate of impunity to terrorists and gangsters who carry out gangland killings in India and carry out all kinds of nefarious mafia activity in India, I don't see how that is conducive to good relations between India and Canada. Number one. Number two, I think the primary responsibility of the government of India is to Indian citizens, first and foremost in India, and then Indian citizens in other countries, including in Canada. In Canadians of Indian origin are not the primary responsibility of the government of India. I think we need to be extremely clear on that. Number one. Number two. Number three, the government's advisory yesterday has made it very clear that the government is apprised of the situation and has asked people to register with them, so that in the case of any untoward incident against Indian citizens or Indian students, the government can provide them whatever security, whatever assistance they require. So it's not as though the government of India is unmindful of what is happening. But I think we have to very clearly understand that their primary responsibility is to Indians living in India